It gives me enormous pleasure to be allowed to give a short introduction to Zefiro Mellacqua as a worthy recipient of the prestigious Eric Berne Memorial Award. Having met Zefiro first through his beautiful writing and then online during a book launch in the COVID period, I know how important this recognition will be for him and how challenging it will be to his unassuming nature. I take most of my words from the nomination, which was made by a number of our esteemed colleagues, some of whom are here, Bill Cornell, Carol Shadbolt, and very many others, who wish to highlight the important contribution that Zefiro has made to the TA community and indeed to the development of our theory. Zefiro's major contribution is in demonstrating how TA may be applied in the treatment of schizophrenia in clinical practice. His work situates TA as a theory and model with much to offer in psychiatric treatment, and it affords our community the recognition that I think the theory deserves. The nomination was based on 2 articles and 2 chapters in a book published in 2014, not sure if that reference is correct, but to a book published as part of the Innovations in TA series. The nominees described Zefiro as a scholar clinician whose work builds on challenges and expands prior work in TA, bridging it to scholarship in different fields. They emphasize that Zefiro is, first and foremost, a clinician, in that his concern is not with abstract understanding, but with helping others live healthier lives, unlocking developmental resources within and around people. If ever there was a quote for TA, then that must be it. The nominators wrote, "This is social psychiatry at its best." Eric Berne would applaud Zefiro's efforts, and I agree. Thank you, Zefiro, for all that you've done and continue to do. I'll hand over to you now.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here. And I've been feeling quite overwhelmed over recent days and months, I would say. So I've prepared something written, obviously, because otherwise it would be difficult for me to handle this. So I've titled my speech, Coming to Light and to Life as Naked Selves. In the beginning was a low, a group of young students, and a handshake. Everything started in 2001 in Catania, Sicily. I was a second-year medical student at that time, and I enthusiastically joined a group of other students and future colleagues with the intent to meet every 2 weeks. Why, someone may ask? It was because Pietro Petriglieri, our professor of neuroanatomy, who was also a neurologist, a psychiatrist, and a transactional analyst himself, in addition to be a true humanist, he strongly believed in people, in the power of groups, asked us to do so. And he was the one who introduced me for the very first time to the work and life of Eric Berne. The social contract was to meet together in order to improve our learning skills at uni and to navigate our emotions in preparing written and oral exams. It sounded fantastic. On a less fantastic tone, however, the psychological contract was different. We were fucked up and we accepted some kind of help. And that help was transactional analysis as pure transformative experience. That group went on meeting weekly and then every 2 weeks for about 5 years. TA theory came together with practice, and it was such a powerful combination. This combination of both group experience and progressively more individual learning of TA theory led me to enroll on a proper TA training in 2007 at the Auximon Institute in Rome, while attending already the School of Psychiatry in Catania. My journey through psychosis to Eric Berne and return. When it came to psychosis, the matter immediately became incandescent. By encountering my very first schizophrenic patients, I soon became dissatisfied with both the pharmacological treatment they were used to receive as part of mainstream psychiatry, and with the most known transactional analysis approach to psychosis, the one offered by Schiff. It was precisely a few years later in London where I moved to complete my specialty training in psychiatry, joining a group of researchers on first psychosis studies at the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology and Neuroscience, and most importantly, by starting to work for the very first time with the psychiatric treatment team, that I developed a deeper understanding of my patients and myself. Thanks in the first place to my analysis and supervision with Elina Hargaden, towards whom I feel indebted to this day. Both medications and separation from family did not seem to help in the clinical work on psychosis, and this fundamental dissatisfaction led me to renew my reading of Berne's writing on intuition and primal images, and his germinal ideas about the script protocol, in order to address the issues that were emerging in my clinical practice. This was how and under which circumstances I eventually bumped again into the Carey's case, as Berne illustrated it in A Layman's Guide to Psychiatry and Psychoanalysis. Here is the passage that I found particularly enlightening. Carey's mind was split in another way, beside being cut up into separate pieces, each acting as though the others didn't exist. The sights which met his eyes and the sounds which came to his ears were split off from his feelings, so that their reality did not call for the normal emotional responses. His feelings seemed to have no connection with what went on around him. His mind was split two ways, so to speak, up and down and across. Later in transactional analysis and psychotherapy, Berne no longer referred to the concept of splitting, but more generally to exclusion. And by so doing, he embraced various psychodynamic processes, such as the splitting itself, dissociation, denial, isolation, withdrawal, even repression, in order to describe the structural pathology of schizophrenia. Despite the more formal Bernean definition of exclusion as associated with severe psychopathology, in reading and rereading the passages on Carey's case, I became more and more attracted by Berne's idea of two different types of splitting as generating fragmentation of the psyche in relation to cases of schizophrenia. Up and down splitting, which I later referred to as vertical splitting, and across splitting, that I named horizontal splitting. I therefore further explored the psychoanalytic literature on splitting besides Berne, including Federn, Fairbairn, Klein, Berne, Reisnick, Bolles, and many, many others, and eventually acknowledged how such defensive mechanism would correspond to a primary strategy that the infantile psyche would put in place in order to resolve discontinuities in the very early relationships of the self with significant others and otherness in general. Discontinuities that lay and tend to remain dormant at an unlanguaged, non-egoic level of experience. As part of my personal journey through psychosis, as the journey through psychosis is always a very personal matter, I have thought for a long time about how much a man's destiny may or may not already be marked by events and also non-events from his childhood, and therefore by experiences that concern him personally, or rather very personally, and which for this very reason end up marking him just as a wound is capable of doing by leaving a mark on the body, on the skin, and even under the skin, and becoming in one way or another a scar, a trace, a living memory, even a lifestyle. Yes, a lifestyle, as it takes a lifetime to become oneself. And here I am to tell you about the curious case of Mr. D, and how his story ended up becoming irreparably intertwined with mine, marking it indelibly. So, Mr. D died at the age of 80 on a Monday morning, January 30th, 2023. He was first diagnosed with schizophrenia at the age of 22. He was hospitalized multiple times and took psychiatric medication for the rest of his life. He couldn't afford long psychotherapy. He knew ancient Latin and Greek literature in depth. He went to university and managed to attend 3 different faculties: medicine, law, veterinary medicine, but failed them all. He never had a job. He prayed a lot, read hundreds of books, walked long distances, and over the years learned to eat healthily and to laugh. He wrote not so many poems that remain unpublished. A few of those poems, they say, are truly beautiful. He left behind a wife, a son, a daughter-in-law, 2 granddaughters, a brother-in-law, and a cat. He loved them all very much and was very much loved by them. He died at home in the arms of his wife, daughter, and brother-in-law. And despite being a rather solitary man, on the day of his death, Mr. D received numerous visits to his house, and the priest said he was a good-hearted man. Mr. D, in addition to being occasionally very psychotic, was, in my opinion, the most extraordinary yet unknown anti-hero of my generation. He was my father. Now, before moving to the conclusion of my speech, let me share with you one of the most touching verses, at least in my opinion, taken from the poem "That Is How We Are," written by Andrea Zanzotto in 1962. I knew him also, sharpening the thought of you who are now neither subject nor object, neither plain speech nor jargon, neither questions nor motions, nor even that for which my eyes have threaded the eyes of needles, negating you not enough. So be it. Still I believe with as much conviction in all my nothingness. That is why I haven't lost you, or rather that the more of you I lose, the more you lose yourself, the more alike we are, the closer we become. In receiving this award, I want to express my deepest gratitude to the ITAA as represented by Thorsten Jack and the BMA committee as represented by Liz Heath, and particularly to all the colleagues who nominated me: William Cornell, Bill, Giampiero Petruglieri, Maria Teresa Tosi, Mick Landesh, Diana Diacono, Nicoletta Gheorghe, Marina Brunke, Carol Schabolt, Susanna Ligabue, Monique Tinissen, Marco Mazzetti. Special thanks go also to senior trainers, colleagues, supervisors, among whom I would like to mention particularly Raffaella Leone Guglielmotti, Giorgio Cavallero, Loredana Paradiso, Maria Gioia Milizia, Helena Hargaden, Steph Oates, Dominique Die, and of course the wonderful editor of TAJ, Robin Fryer. Certainly, there are many others to thank for their incredible support and encouragement over those years spent in London and later on in Switzerland, where now I work and live. Undoubtedly, my gratitude goes also to my family of origin and to life in itself that I've learned over the years both to love and to hate, and then to accept with kindness and respectful curiosity, a bit like we learn to do so with our own self and with those people who concern us the most. Transactional analysis has certainly played a major role in helping me do this too. Lastly, but certainly not last, I'm deeply grateful to Maria for always being there. She knows how to find in me what continues to be even unknown to myself. With her, I have finally understood how life is really worth living, especially now that it has been enriched by the intimate presence of my 2 daughters, Caterina and Agatha. In conclusion, transactional analysis has literally saved my life. It has done so psychologically, physically, to some extent even financially, spiritually, in one word, through existence in itself, and therefore through people. No matter how much we resist psychological annihilation of ourselves, we cannot escape mental and social pain, anguish, trauma, loss, death. These very human experiences are the very living demonstration of us being constantly in relation to the other and otherness. From this more existential perspective, psychosis could be ultimately regarded as the last resort to such a disturbing yet almost ineffable experience of the self in relation to the other and to life and death in general. Thus, as the poet beautifully put it, the more alike we are, the closer we become. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a moving speech, Zefiro. I can hardly find words to say thank you. We will be celebrating you again in Montpellier, but thank you for that beautiful speech.
Thank you. Thank you all.